Welcome to the fourth ToKini Andy Kanji lesson. Today we're going to be covering the meaning, building blocks, writing, historical evolution where applicable, and a story to memorize each of the following kanji. We'll also learn the parts and radicals needed for those kanji. Today we have 2 new parts. Also, stick around to the end of the lesson where we'll be doing a quick quiz to help everything stick. So let's get into it. We have just a few more numbers to cover today before finally moving into the more interesting kanji. This one means 1,000. The official radical for 1,000 is 10, which makes sense. It can be broken down further into the no radical, which we learned in lesson 2, and 10. There are 3 strokes in 1,000. You might expect the middle line to be written first, but since no is often used as a drop on top of things, and drops are usually written first, we write the no radical part first. We then write 10 as we usually would. Another way to think about this is that we're writing the part on top in the north first, followed by the radical or part below it, which is 10. 1,000 hasn't really changed much over the years, it just used to be more squiggly. Which brings us to my favorite part of each section, the story. The official story for 1,000 is, No has 990 intelligence, because of course he does. When he uses a +10 staff, he gets to 1,000 intelligence. If you've ever played an RPG, this probably makes perfect sense to you. If you haven't, characters you play in role-playing games generally have a few statistics that indicate what they're good at. Intelligence indicates whether someone is smart and how good at magic they'll be. In the world of kanji stories we're creating, No is pretty smart. In RPGs, items tend to increase your statistics. This one gives No even more intelligence, +10 intelligence to be exact, which brings him to 1,000 intelligence. Remember that it's a good idea to pause the video after each story and really try to imagine it, or to create a story of your own that will help you remember the kanji even better. Make sure the story contains the meaning and every single part in some way. That brings us to our first non-kanji radical of the video, the wrapping radical, as in wrapping paper, not Tupac. Non-kanji radicals don't have radicals, and this one can be thought of as a single part on its own. There are 2 strokes for this one. First, we write the stroke that looks something like a no radical, though officially it's not, and then a single stroke similar to the second stroke in mouth. We go east to west and north to south in a single stroke, and curve back underneath whatever it is that we'll be wrapping up. This is usually used as an enclosure or kamae for other parts. The story is simple, but will help build our future stories. Whatever this is included with is wrapped up in wrapping paper. The first kanji we'll learn that includes this wrapping radical does not use it in a conventional way at all. In fact, it's not officially even considered a part. The first resource to list it as a part was Remembering the Kanji by James Hasig, and I decided to include it as well as it makes this kanji easier to remember. The kanji is 10,000. When talking about numbers in English, we break them up into ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, and then millions. Japanese includes 10,000s as a breakpoint when discussing numbers, which can be difficult to get used to. This is the kanji used for it. The official radical for 10,000 is 1, and we'll break it down further into 1 and wrapping paper. 10,000 has 3 strokes, but the second stroke is not the one you would expect. We draw the wrapping stroke, or the one that encloses kanji, before the no radical stroke, which really gives it away that this is not actually the wrapping paper radical. I couldn't find anything about the historical evolution of 10,000, so our story is 1 fluorescent worm with 10,000 yen wrapping paper placed on top of it, the roll of wrapping paper below it. Both oddities indicating the difference in stroke order from the true wrapping radical, because who uses money to wrap things up? Weird. Our final non-kanji part for this lesson is another enclosure or kamae called Overturned Box. It's its only part and has 2 strokes. We write it almost identically to how we write the first 2 strokes of mouth, except that the final stroke curves back underneath whatever it's enclosing. Historically, this looked kind of like a staple, but for our story, it's just an overturned box. Our first kanji that uses an overturned box is yen, the currency in Japan. The official radical for yen is the one we just learned, overturned box. The parts are overturned box, and inside it, a pot lid. There are 4 strokes in yen. We first draw the overturned box enclosure, as enclosures on top are usually drawn first, and then the pot lid inside of it. It's important to note that the top and sides of the pot lid connect with the enclosing overturned box. An interesting side note is that yen also has the meaning of round or a circle, so you could envision this as circular coins. But our story is, there's an overturned box which you can pay yen to receive what's inside. You pay, and it's a pot lid. Imagine this like you're on a game show like The Price is Right or something. And instead of prizes behind 3 doors you can choose, they're inside overturned cardboard boxes. If you'd prefer to have picked a box with something better than a pot lid inside of it, make sure you hit the like button, because... Which leads us finally out of the numbers kanji and up to better things, which is exactly what this next kanji means. Up. The official radical for up is 1, which I guess you could say shows up twice in this kanji. It can be further broken down into 1 and staff. There are 3 strokes in up, and while there seem to be some books that state that the west to east stroke is first, in school kids learn to write the staff first, north to south, and then the 2 west to east lines. The historical forms may point to why it's this way. Up used to look exactly like the modern day 2, so you can think of it like writing the first part, staff, followed by 2, or just 2 ones, either way. But the story we'll use for this is more pictograph than story. A fluorescent worm, flag planted up above it. That line coming off our staff we'll think of as a flag blowing in the wind. If you've made it to this point in the video, fly your flag by letting me know in the comments, or by hitting the subscribe button if you haven't yet. Which brings us to down. The official radical for down is 1, just like it is for up. The parts are all the same too, officially, although we could include a drop as a part in this one too. There are 3 strokes in down, with the 1 being written first, west to east, and then the staff down below it, followed by our drop. Historically, this was drawn as what looked like an upside down 2, which meant up, not 2 back then. But my favorite rendering of down is this one, with an eye down under the single eyebrow. Our story / pictograph for down is, our flag is hanging down below the fluorescent worm, sagging. Which brings us to the Lesson 4 quiz. In this section of the video, I'll show you a flashcard with the English meaning for a kanji. Pause the video when we show each card and try to remember how to write that kanji. Next, write it on your hand with your finger or on a piece of paper. Then press play and see if you were right. The best way to remember kanji you just learned is to search your memory for the story we taught you, or the one you made based on the English word on the flashcard. Our first card is 1,000. Next is 10,000. Just a few more. Here's yen. And then there's up. Finally, we have down. Let us know how many you got right down in the comments. You can learn the next 5 kanji by clicking here, if the video is already out. If you don't want to wait, you can continue learning with our Level 1 Kanji Flashcard deck for ANKI on ToKiniAndy.com. We're also releasing Kanji series videos early for all the members there, so check it out if you want a head start.